Hi again, it's Melissa Dooley, and I'm presenting on flipped learning. So here's a little introduction. Flipped learning is different than a traditional method of learning that is typical in a classroom. The way it works is that students learn their lessons at home through videos, relevant games, or any additional online platform that their teacher gives them for them to learn at home. And then they come to school the next day and they do what should have been their homework in class with help from their peers and their teacher watching over and being able to be there to answer any questions for the students. So classroom integration, what teachers want to make sure that they have is that all students have access to technology. If they don't have access to technology, teachers might want to look into different ways of getting that information across to students, whether that's a textbook or a worksheet that they made just for that student to help them get the knowledge that they need to know without feeling left out because they don't have the correct technology. Another thing that a teacher wants to make sure they do is don't lecture twice. Don't lecture through a video at home and then when they come back to school, lecture again, because that way you're just going to make your students fall asleep in class. They're just going to think everything's irrelevant, or they're not going to do it at home because they know that their teacher's going to tell it again at school. So make sure you don't lecture twice. And then do your research, of course. So you want to know what apps are best to use at home and to help integrate students. You want to do your research to see if this is the correct teaching style for you, because obviously it's not for everyone. Flipped learning changes the education field, and this is how it gears towards this generation of kids, because kids right now are growing up in an age of technology, so they have been handed a cell phone since the day they've been born. They are integrated in technology, and allowing them to use the tools that they were given and that's right in front of them will help enhance their learning. It also allows for teachers to form a greater connection with the students, because it allows the teachers to be more one-on-one on the students, because instead of just lecturing at them, they're working with them to try to figure out how to solve a problem, answer questions. Another thing is students could work ahead of time, and this allows them to manage their time better. They do this by, a teacher gives a week at a time or a month at a time of lessons, or the chapter at a time, and the student could work ahead. So if they have no extracurricular activities on Monday, they can do all their week's worth on Monday. That way they're not having a ton of homework due on Tuesday, in which case they have soccer practice, basketball practice, whatever type of extracurricular they do after school, and they're not stressed about it. So it helps them manage their time and get ahead of work and not have to stress much about that. So here are some advantages and disadvantages. So like I just said, allows students to learn at their own pace and get ahead is an advantage. Teachers get to work with their students more one-on-one. Students can use classroom time to ask questions effectively, because of course when a teacher is lecturing all day, they might not have the ability to ask questions just because time runs out and teachers have to keep on moving. And then online resources can be a tool for students to review for tests, because they always have that on their digital device. They could always look back, and that'll make it a lot easier for them to go back and review what they learned in class, because it was right in front of them at home. And some disadvantages are high screen time in students. Students are stuck on a screen more longer, so they're not getting as much face-to-face interaction after school. And then lack of technology in some students' homes can be an issue. Students suffering from technical difficulties, let's say there's a hurricane that comes, students are not going to be able to go online and do their homework, or not homework, but learn the lessons because of technical difficulties. Significant work on the teacher the first year. The teacher has a lot of planning to be able to create these platforms for these students to look at. Future of flipped learning. Flipped learning scares a lot of teachers, I believe. They're unfamiliar with it, and initially it's a lot of work for them to create online resources for their students. With time, this gives teachers more flexibility. Some teachers will continue traditional learning, and few will switch over to flipped learning. These are all my predicted future. I don't actually know what is going to happen, but this is what I predict personally. My thoughts: I plan on implementing traditional learning into my classroom, at least for the first few years of teaching, so that I could get settled in and I know how to manage my classroom instead of just going into a complete different thing that I'm not used to. And then eventually I want to switch over to flipped learning, or do like some sort of half and half, so that I can get a feel of how I like doing it and if I like doing it at all. Conclusion: I think flipped learning is a cool idea, and I believe it might be the next step into progressing education. I do have some concerns about the lack of technology in some households, and that is where I have some drawbacks. In order to make up for this, teachers could always create more, like a different way for students to get that information without technology involved, such as a textbook or some worksheets. My second concern is how effective are these methods at elementary age, which is what I want to teach. Students might not have the motivation or the work ethic at that young to teach themselves. And this is my final reflection of the whole semester and my references.